My roommate told me to stay away from her friends. She wasn't laughing when she discovered why. I, 27 male, am writing this because I honestly need to vent, and looking back at the last 48 hours, I still can't believe how close I came to actually losing everything I've worked for. I'm a logistics manager by trade, which basically means my life is a series of spreadsheets, timelines, and managing chaos. I like order. I like quiet. And most of all, I like my house. I bought this place about 8 months ago. It's a 3-bedroom craftsman in a suburb that's up and coming, which is realtor speak for needs a lot of work. I poured my life savings into the down payment and spent every weekend since closing day covered in drywall dust, paint, and sawdust. To help with the mortgage while I fixed up the place, I decided to rent out the spare master suite. It's a nice room, huge windows, ensuite bathroom, walk-in closet. It was the only part of the house that was fully finished. I interviewed a lot of people. A lot. I wanted someone quiet, professional, and who would pay on time. Then I met Sarah, 24 female. She worked in marketing, drove a decent car, and seemed incredibly put together. She came across as ambitious and polite during the walkthrough. She gushed about the house's potential and said she was looking for a quiet sanctuary to focus on her career. We signed a standard month-to-month lease. I handed her the keys, and I thought I'd hit the roommate jackpot. For the first 3 weeks, it was bliss. She paid rent early, she was barely home. We passed each other in the kitchen, exchanged pleasantries, and went about our days. I spent my evenings in the garage or the half-finished living room working on the renovations. The shift happened on a random Tuesday. I was in the hallway, patching up some drywall, looking like a mess, covered in white dust, wearing an old t-shirt with holes in it. Sarah walked in, dropped her designer bag on the floor, and looked at me with this weird mix of pity and annoyance. "Hey," she said, her voice sharp. "We need to establish some ground rules." I put down my taping knife. "Okay, is something wrong with the room?" "No, the room is fine," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's about the atmosphere. I have a very specific social circle. High-value individuals, people in finance, tech, influencers. Networking is my life. When I have them over, I need you to make yourself scarce." I blinked, confused. Scarce? Yes, invisible. Don't come into the common areas. Don't try to make small talk with them. Just stay in your workspace or go out. It disrupts the vibe I'm trying to curate. It was an incredibly rude request, but honestly, I'm an introvert. The idea of not having to talk to a bunch of marketing influencers sounded like a vacation to me. I didn't want to be involved in her curated vibe anyway. "Fine," I shrugged. "I'm usually working on the house or in my room anyway. As long as they aren't destroying anything, I don't care." "Perfect," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just make sure you really stick to that. It's important for my brand." 2 weeks later, I came home early from a grueling shift at the warehouse. My truck is an old beat-up Ford, reliable but ugly. I parked it on the street because the driveway was full. There was a BMW, a Tesla, and a Lexus blocking the garage. Sarah was hosting. I sighed, grabbed my water bottle, and walked up the driveway. I entered through the side door into the kitchen, just wanting to grab a cold drink and disappear into my room to shower. The living room, which opens into the kitchen, was buzzing. Sarah was standing there with a glass of wine, holding court with about 6 people who looked like they stepped out of a catalog. Suits, expensive watches, perfectly styled hair. As soon as the side door clicked shut, the conversation stopped. Sarah whipped around, and the look of sheer panic on her face was almost comical. She practically sprinted over to me, positioning herself between me and her guests. "What are you doing here?" she hissed under her breath. "I live here," I whispered, bewildered. "I'm just getting water." One of the guests, a tall guy in a tailored suit, stepped forward, swirling his wine. "Sarah, is this the contractor you were complaining about, the one taking forever with the remodel?" I froze. I looked at Sarah. Her face went pale, then flushed red. "Yes," she laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "This is the handyman. He's just fixing a pipe in the back. He was just leaving, right?" She looked at me, her eyes wide and pleading. It was a desperate look. "Please don't blow this for me." I was tired. I was dirty. I smelled like cardboard and sweat. I really didn't have the energy to get into a confrontation in front of 6 strangers. "Yeah," I muttered, grabbing a glass of water from the tap. I walked past them to the hallway. As I turned the corner, out of sight but still within earshot, I heard the guy ask, "Hard to find good help, isn't it? But seriously, Sarah, buying this place was a genius move. The equity alone in this neighborhood is going to skyrocket once you finish the renovations." "Oh, I know," I heard Sarah say, her voice dripping with confidence. "It's a headache dealing with contractors, but being a homeowner at 24 is all about the long game. You have to sacrifice to build the portfolio." I stopped dead in my tracks. She wasn't just embarrassed of me. She was pretending she owned my house. I went to my room, sat on my bed, and just stared at the wall. It was one thing to ask for privacy. It was another to erase my existence and claim my hard work as her own. The sanding, the plumbing, the mortgage payments, she was taking credit for all of it to impress her high-value friends. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen making an elaborate breakfast. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "We need to talk," I said, leaning against the island. "You told your friends you own this house. You told them I'm the handyman." She flipped a pancake, completely unbothered. "So what? It's a little white lie. It helps me network. In my industry, perception is reality. If they think I'm renting, I'm just another employee. If they think I own property, I'm an equal. It doesn't hurt you. You get your rent check, I get my connections. Everyone wins." "It does hurt me," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is my home. I worked double shifts for 6 years to afford this down payment. I'm not going to be a guest in my own house so you can play pretend." She slammed the spatula down. The mask of professionalism dropped completely. Her face twisted into something ugly. "You are making such a big deal out of nothing. God, you're so insecure. Do you need a gold star for buying a house? I pay rent, which gives me rights to the space. If I want to host and control the narrative, that's my business. Just keep playing along and don't be a creep." I walked away before I said something I'd regret. I checked my state's laws that night. Since she was month to month, I could give her a 30-day notice for no reason. I decided I would do it the next month. I needed the cash flow for one more mortgage payment before I risked a vacancy. But entitled.
People don't stop pushing boundaries. If you give them an inch, they take a mile, and then they sue you for not giving them the land rights to the mile. A few days later, I noticed things missing. My expensive bourbon was significantly lower. A couple of ribeye steaks I had in the freezer vanished. When I texted her about it, she replied, "My friends came over. We needed snacks. I'll Venmo you." She never Venmo'd me. Then came the demand that broke the camel's back. It was this past Wednesday. Sarah knocked on my office door, banged on it and walked in without waiting. "I need the house this weekend," she announced. "Excuse me? My friends and I are planning a staycation, retreat. We're going to treat the house like a luxury spa. I need you to leave Friday morning and come back Monday afternoon. I'll give you $60 for a motel." I stared at her. I actually laughed out loud. "Sarah, are you insane? This is my house. I live here. I'm not going to a motel so you can play house with your friends. You can have people over, but I'm staying." "You can't stay," she snapped, stomping her foot like a toddler. "I already told them you wouldn't be here. It's going to be totally weird if the handyman is lurking around while we're in our robes drinking mimosas. You ruin the aesthetic. You're just around. It's uncomfortable." "That sounds like a you problem," I said, turning back to my computer. "Tell them the truth, or cancel the party." The room went silent. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "If you don't leave," she said, her voice low and venomous, "I will call the police." I spun my chair around. "For what?" "I'll tell them you entered my room without permission," she said, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "I'll tell them you were going through my underwear drawer. I'll say I don't feel safe. Who do you think they'll believe, the successful young woman or the creepy single guy living in a construction zone? I'll ruin your reputation. I'll get a restraining order. You'll be kicked out of your own house until the court sorts it out." I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was extortion. She was threatening to weaponize the legal system and destroy my life just to maintain a lie for her friends. "Are you threatening me?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I'm negotiating," she said, checking her nails. "Be gone by Friday at 8 a.m. Don't come back until Monday." She turned and walked out, leaving the door open. I sat there for a long time, my heart hammering against my ribs. She thought she had won. She thought that because I was quiet, I was weak. She thought she held all the cards. She forgot two very important things. One, I work in logistics. I document everything. And two, I have a very good friend, Mike, who specializes in property law. I didn't pack a bag. I drove straight to Mike's office. I told him everything. I told him about the handyman lie, the stolen food, and the threat. Mike listened, his face getting harder by the minute. Okay, the threat is he said, she said, unless you recorded it, but we can get her on the lease violations. Attempted extortion effectively breaches the peaceful enjoyment clause. But we need to nail her on something concrete, something undeniable. We hatched a plan. It was risky, but I was done playing nice. Friday morning rolled around. I staged it perfectly. I packed a duffel bag loud enough for her to hear. I walked out to the kitchen where she was sipping coffee, looking triumphant. "Leaving?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," I muttered. "I win. I'll be back Monday." "Smart choice," she smirked. "Don't forget to lock the back gate on your way out." I got in my truck and drove off. Sarah watched from the window until I turned the corner. But I didn't go to a motel. I drove around the block and parked in the alleyway behind my neighbor's house. Mrs. Gable is a sweet, sharp-as-a-tack 70-year-old who spends her days gardening. She also hates Sarah because Sarah once backed her car into Mrs. Gable's prize-winning rose bushes and claimed the bush came out of nowhere. Mrs. Gable was more than happy to let me set up camp in her sunroom, which has a perfect view of my backyard and patio. Around noon, the cars started arriving. It was the same crew as before, plus a few more. I saw them unpacking cases of expensive wine, catering trays, and, my jaw dropped, my patio furniture. I had locked that furniture in the shed for the season. She had bolt-cut the lock to get it out. I zoomed in with my phone camera. She was giving them a tour of the garden I had planted, pointing at the trellis I built, clearly taking credit for the landscaping. But then I saw something that made my blood boil. She was handing out key cards, not keys, key cards. She had installed a smart lock on the front door without asking me. And as the guests settled in, I saw one of them hand her an envelope of cash. "Thanks for setting this up, Sarah. It's so much cheaper than the Ritz and way more private," I hear the girl say. The windows were open. "Anything for you guys," Sarah beamed, pocketing the cash. "I'm just glad I could open up my home to the group." She was charging them. She was running an unlicensed hotel in my house. I texted Mike. "She's subletting, taking cash, broken into the shed." Mike texted back. "Jackpot. Illegal activity on the premises plus unauthorized subletting. That bypasses the 30-day notice in our state. You can serve an unconditional notice to quit. 3 days to vacate." I waited. I let the party get into full swing. By 10 p.m., the music was blasting. They were loud, drunk, and disrespectful. My poor neighbors were probably going insane. This was another lease violation, noise ordinance. At 10:15 p.m., I walked to my front door. My key still worked on the deadbolt, even though she'd changed the handle lock. I let myself in. The scene was chaos. Someone had spilled red wine on my beige rug, there were half-eaten trays of food on my new sofa, and Sarah? She was standing on my vintage teak coffee table, shoes on, holding a bottle of champagne. "To the Empire!" she screamed, toasting the room, "and to the best tenants I can ask for this weekend." I stepped into the living room light. "Get off my table." My voice wasn't a scream, but it cut through the room like a knife. The music died down as someone fumbled with the speaker. Sarah froze. She looked at me, then at her friends, her face from triumph to sheer terror in a split second. "You," she stammered. Then the panic turned to aggression. She tried to double down. "I told you," she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "I told you to fix the AC unit on Monday. What are you doing here? You're fired. Get out. I'm calling the police." She pulled out her phone, her hands trembling. "I'm dialing 911 right now. This man is an intruder." Her friends looked uncomfortable. The tall suit guy stepped up again, looking annoyed. "Buddy, seriously, you're going to get yourself arrested. She owns the place. Just leave." "She doesn't own the place," I said, my voice calm, almost bored. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila folder. "I do," I said, pointing.
That is the deed to the house, and that is the lease agreement Sarah signed 3 months ago. Page 1. Landlord, me. Tenant, Sarah. Sarah scrambled off the table, snatching up the papers. He forged these. He's crazy. He's a stalker who's
Obsessed with me. Read the signatures, Sarah, I said, and while you're at it, explain to your friends why there are pictures of my parents on the hallway wall. I walked over to the wall where she had hung a generic Live, Laugh, Love print over a frame. I ripped the print down. Underneath was a photo of me, my mom, and my dad fishing. That's me, I pointed to the photo. That's my dad. Sarah isn't in the picture. The room went deathly silent. The suit guy picked up the deed. He read it. He looked at the lease. He looked at Sarah, who was now hyperventilating, backing away into the corner. Sarah, the guy said, his voice dropping an octave, you charged us $500 each for this weekend. You said this was your equity asset. You said you were giving us the friends and family discount. I needed the money for renovations, she squeaked. For my renovations? I asked. You pocketed $3,000 to let people trash my house. I turned to the group. She is my tenant. She pays $800 a month for the back room. She has no right to rent this place out. You are all technically trespassing, but since you were scammed, I'm not going to call the cops on you. Yet. I looked at Sarah. But you're done. You can't kick me out, she wailed, the tears finally starting. Angry, entitled tears. I have rights. You have to give me 30 days. Actually, I said, enjoying this moment more than I probably should have, since you engaged in illegal activity on the premises, specifically fraud and running an unlicensed business, and you destroyed property by breaking into my shed, I am serving you with an unconditional notice to quit. I handed her the official notice Mike had prepared. You have 3 days, I said, Monday at noon. If you are not out, the sheriff will be here to remove you. And if you take so much as a light bulb, or if you damage one more thing, I will sue you for every penny you have, and I will garnish your wages until you're 40. The room turned on her instantly. The high-value friends realized they had been duped by someone they thought was their peer. You charged me for a private chef, one girl said, sounding disgusted. We've been eating takeout you plated on fancy dishes, haven't we? I pointed to the kitchen. The Domino's boxes are in the recycling bin. I saw the delivery guy from the neighbor's window. The humiliation was absolute. Sarah shrank into herself, looking small and pathetic. The group started grabbing their bags. They demanded their money back right there. Sarah had to open her banking app and Venmo them all back, draining her account in front of me. She was sobbing, shaking, watching her networking circle evaporate. We're leaving, the suit guy said to me. He looked embarrassed. Sorry about the rug, man, seriously. Just take the wine. I don't drink Chardonnay. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for Sarah and me. She sat on the couch, surrounded by the mess she created. You ruined my life, she whispered, staring at the floor. Everyone is going to know. I'll be blacklisted. You ruined your own life, I corrected. You lied to everyone you know. You threatened to have me arrested for a sex crime I didn't commit just so you could look rich for a weekend. You tried to destroy me to boost your ego. I walked to the door and held it open. Get packing. You have 72 hours. She moved out Sunday night. She tried to be sneaky about it, loading her car at 2 a.m., but I sat on the porch drinking coffee, watching her every move. She didn't dare take anything that wasn't hers. The aftermath was messy but satisfying. She had to move back in with her parents in a different state because she couldn't afford a deposit on a new place in the city. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, it's a small world, that she tried to spin the story, saying I was an abusive landlord, but the high-value friends she ripped off had already spread the truth. She's effectively a pariah in the local marketing scene. I kept her security deposit. It barely covered the rug cleaning, the broken lock on the shed, and the deep clean I had to do, but it was the principle of the thing. I finished the renovations on my own time. The house looks great. I converted her old room into a gaming den/library. It's my favorite room in the house now. I learned a valuable lesson. You can't be passive with entitled people. They view kindness as weakness and silence as permission. Sometimes you have to be the villain in their delusion to be the hero in your own reality. So, if you ever have a roommate who tells you to hide in your own house, don't just hide. Check the lease, talk to a lawyer, and remind them who actually holds the keys.
And if you want to see the full tour of the gaming den I built with her rent money, or hear the voicemail she left me begging for a reference, which I obviously didn't give, hit that subscribe button. It costs exactly $0, unlike the luxury retreat Sarah tried to sell.